Mr. Drew.
Hello.
I take it your family actually doesn't have anything to do with the catch-up business.
Not one bit. I'm still waiting on those DNA results.
It's rough.
Oh, it's a sad shame.
So, I guess we'll just kind of talk this out. Where did your musical journey start?
Oh, God. Probably like most people, starting out with what my parents listened to, and then you get a little bit older, you want to do like your own thing, and then but then you discover some more things along the way, and then you look back at the first things you were listening to and kind of cringe. You're like, oh.
Yeah.
But then you kind of get nostalgic for that, like as you get even older there.
Right. Yeah, I like.
Yeah.
I grew up in a very non-artistic. We got a new kitty that I know you hear hollering in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So hopefully Cat will make an appearance, right. But we're not gonna try to dictate the when and where of that. Yep. But yeah, so
picks his own rules.
But I grew up listening to radio country. And
wow.
was raised by my grandparents. So a lot of I remember one of my first songs was Wooly Bully. You don't even know what that is.
Over my head.
Yeah. I don't even know who the artist was or anything, but Rockin' Robin, all those songs, those
that's
classic oldies, and then Garth Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing is, now I look back on those, and I'm like, some of these songs were a lot better than they got credit for. Like, there was this, Sawyer Brown song written by Mac McAnally in Nashville, and all these years. And it's a wonderful, heartbreaking, existential song about a man who comes home, finds his wife in bed with another woman, and then the song is like them talking about it. And the lady's it's like, I made your supper and your daughter and your son, all this stuff. And you're just imagining, it's a great song.
Yeah.
It's a great song, wonderfully written. And I've seen the original writer do performances of it. I tried to cover it. I should probably cover it again or whatever. But a lot of those songs are a lot better than you think. And then maybe they have a lot of tropes of the era, Oh, yeah. Did you ever listen to much emo, screamo stuff back in the early 2000s?
Oh, yes. What was it? So, if we're talking emo, I think the first emo band that I really liked was MCR. And I think we discussed, I know. It depends on how old you are if people consider MCR emo or not.
Gotcha.
There, but for my era, we would definitely call them emo. And I guess what I liked them so much, they were probably the most theatrical of all the emo groups, And but then from there, we got in because of high school and other chicks that were asking hey, what bands do you like? And I was naming some metal bands. They're like, that's not modern whatsoever. So because of that, I got into more Bring Me the Horizon. Suicide Season was definitely an album I bought, listened to a whole ton. There.
I guess the reason I bring it up is there's a lot of songs that are good, but they...
Oh, hello!
Oh, right.
What up, Cat?
I told you, there is a cat. Right? And it's a young cat, a happy cat.
Yep.
That bounds on the tables.
Just loves chaos.
Of gin and tonic.
Right.
But the reason I brought it up is there's a lot of stuff that is dated by the tropes of its era, especially in the hardcore emo screamo stuff that was my first acquired taste in music. You have to get over, I don't know what they're saying, what is this screaming,
exactly,
and that was a barrier to entry. But if you're willing to sort of sit with it, you could find the beauty in it and the
I feel like once it goes away, people are like then become nostalgic for it because you don't hear it anymore. Like TikTok is like loving. Is very nostalgic for like old pop punk like back in the day. I don't know if so much the screamo, but more of the clean vocals. And now they got Travis Barker producing and drumming everyone now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's good enough at the drumming, to do that for sure. Like, I listened to "I Miss You" the other day.
Oh yeah.
This is a great percussion part. Like, the and with Blink, it's different.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're just pop punk. They're not screamo whatsoever.
But the arrangements.
Yeah.
Are not as simple as people think. Okay, like it's the same as like so if you listen to Nirvana, or going it's a different thing, but similar idea is you got a lot of power chords and then I think there's this development. Pulling on my mic cable, Mr. Kitty. Right. But they
That's his own thing.
Yeah, you can't control the cat. The cat is the chaos we've added to the mix. But so, like, you have, like, a song that's mostly power chords. And so, like, us as young high school musicians were like, oh, that song's simple. Because it's just these shapes on the guitar moving them around. Mm-hmm. But there's so much more to what's in a song than what's happening with the guitar. Exactly. If you take a lot of the vocals in, especially with, like, Blink, and also especially with Kurt Cobain, he's always singing like Kurt's always singing like the upper extensions. So he's doing like his melody is making the chord more complex than just the root and the five.
Yeah.
Similarly with Blink, there's harmonies and things going on that expand the arrangement from just the trio of the three dudes or whatever. And that's where the magic is, and that's the magic that we always miss when we're thinking of things as in a very narrow sense. Anyway, so I can appreciate a lot of stuff now, which I guess the original point, circling back around, is that the music you grow up with, you thought, oh, I liked it just because I was familiar with it, I was around it, but then a lot of times these things were masterfully arranged.
Oh yeah.
And that's someone put a lot of time into them, and that's what makes them stand the test of time, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. Like they're not doing the most inventive chords, but how they do it is like their own style, what they love. Like blues was a very similar thing as well, to where they're all playing the same chords or playing just a different key of the same thing, but it's how they did it, that makes them stand out from everybody else.
Right. It's the particularities of it.
Exactly.
If you will. So, I guess we'll just... I was about to go like super phenomenological on that, but instead I will stay right here with you, and we'll get there. So tell us about, we're on your musical journey. So at what point did you pick up the guitar?
So in the beginning, I was taking drumming lessons of all things. I think my mom had like a work friend whose boyfriend at the time was a guitar player and drummer, and he was giving me drumming lessons. It was great, and my parents thought it was definitely going to be like a phase or something like that. And then by the time my birthday was coming, my 16th birthday, I believe, I was telling them, hey, I want a drum set. I'm going to commit to the drums. I'm really liking playing music. Let's do the drums, let's upgrade from the drum pad, blah, blah, blah. Come my 16th birthday, I get a songbook of the Nirvana Unplugged set for guitar, and I'll go, what? And then they had a printed picture of a guitar that they got me that's coming in the mail soon, of a Yamaha guitar, and they're like, hey, here's a guitar. It's much cheaper than a drum set. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's see if I'll commit to that. And honestly, I think they made the better decision just because, hitting stuff will be great, but I don't know, something about starting off with just rhythm, the base of all music, was a great starting point. But I think down the road, I realized, no, I want to have some kind of melody. I want to put chords together, to make a song kind of interesting, you know. But yeah,
a lot of drummers are very upset right now.
I know. The world needs more drummers.
Definitely so. We've got some amazing people around, for sure. Sticks with the perfect pitch comes to mind immediately, and then also the manager. Shout out to the manager and Sticks. But there's so many percussion's so much deeper than any of us could perceive when we were teenagers. So, but it's funny because the way I got into playing the guitar is I'd gotten pretty good at Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and and in my head I thought, I was like, you know what? I can put together these combinations with my thumbs really good. So I must have pretty good dexterity. Maybe I can play the guitar as well, right? I mean, it's just like moving your fingers around. And I was just kind of half mentioning it because I was a big fan of different musicians in the local area when I was in high school. And I just kind of half mentioned it. And my mom bought a guitar for me for Christmas. And it was the world's worst guitar. It was like a Oscar Schmidt with like a really bowed neck. Like it had like, my buddy Blake came over and he was going to try to teach me a few things. And he was like, well, this thing's like a trampoline for your fingers. Like the strings were so far off.
Some high action and all that.
Really high action. Basically unplayable. And so I ended up having to trade the guitar that my mom bought me for Christmas for like this like knockoff Stratocaster at another pawn shop, and tried to learn on that for a while. But something about anyone giving you a thing makes you feel very compelled to follow through. Yeah. So I was like, well, now that I wasn't even really serious about playing guitar at the time, but once I got the guitar, I was like, okay, well, someone in my mind, someone invested in me, and I had to do something with it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Which I guess is Go ahead.
I love that is your response, because like the same thing happened to me where my mom bought me a guitar, but instead of being compelled, I asked her to sell it for a pair of shoes.
Oh, God.
But here we are.
Wow.
That is the
Circled
voice.
back around there.
That is the voice of co-founder of Briarcliff and my wife, Miss Shug, who hopefully everyone will know. But now she plays bass, so it's all worked out. It's all come around. And
there we go. And she has great shoes now.
Yeah, lots of shoes.
I realized the importance in life.
Right. Took a while, but it comes around.
Yeah.
But I guess that is the Briarcliff model too. It is like, we bring a lot of equipment out to an open mic that we do at Tommy's Pub, and it's not the world's greatest equipment, but it's all like fair to middling.
You got a little bit of everything. Yeah.
And we let other people play those instruments, and I think it's Plato, but he said, the best violinist should have the best violin. And that's how I've always felt about it. I'm like, the musicians should have the tools they need to make the sounds they want to make. And if they get that, then the magic that results is what everybody needs. And I guess that's me playing guitar wasn't what anyone needed, especially for like the first like 3-4 years for sure. Yeah. But I don't know, and I can't imagine what would have been like otherwise now. And so if that little bit of investment in me, the $70 pawn shop guitar or whatever it was, led to so many things in my life, then what more could come out of creating a space where everyone can do that if they're just willing to do it?
And I think that's why I mentioned my perspective on it, is because I was completely outside of the music industry in every way. So for me to feel like there's a space for me to learn and create is huge because I didn't have that before. So it's amazing that Briarcliff is here for me to be able to discover that and go on that journey and not feel pressured to have a lot of knowledge or background in it, but to have that space for me to learn and create is important.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I love about the whole open mic model. I think that probably the biggest contributor to me wanting to like dedicate more to the guitar was at the time Summit Coffee over in Davidson had their own open mic, and living in Davidson and having it like right there was like amazing. God, for months I was going there each and every, what was it, like Wednesday or Thursday that they were doing it. And I would see like a lot of classmates of mine like travel down over to Davidson just to perform their songs and everything, which made me want to, get good enough to be able to perform.
Right.
And when I started, like one day, I decided, no, you know what? I'm actually going to perform. I got one song here and I'm going to do, looking back now, a bad cover of Float On by Modest Mouse.
That would be a hard one to do by yourself, I think.
Right? But hey, I had that, 16, 17-year-old arrogance about me. Let's do it. Which you kind of need to perform, and they decided to cancel the open mic at Summit Coffee. Apparently, some kid... during the open mic. It was getting very high school at the time, and the management was not liking it. But as a high schooler, I'm like, hey, come on. Someone wrote on their bathroom wall in Sharpie, this is where hipsters come to fuck. Don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but...
oh, no, you're allowed to do whatever you want.
Great. Yeah, so that happened. They got pissed. They were like, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. So I come here wanting to perform for the first time. Nothing. So they did some kind of impromptu, right outside the coffee shop there. So I got to perform, but because we were not going to let that obstacle get in the way. And I think a couple years later they brought it back, and then I was eventually able to perform at their open mic there. And I don't know, it's just something about that I just love doing. So
well, that right there,
it,
Yeah, the open mic. To me, and I say this, and people, I don't know what they think, but I'll never know. That's the great thing about other people. I'll never know what they think. It's an infinite abyss there. But open mics are sacred, and because how else do you start? Like you just said,
exactly.
So in a well attended open mic, gives you just enough to be like, oh, I want to be. For me, the first one was Coffee Underground in Greenville.
Yeah,
it was a cool place. They had a back room, like there was a theater, and you got your overpriced coffee, and you go back in the back, and you sign up, and you play with all these killers. These great musicians would come through and play their songs. And you'd be like, man, I just want to be like that guy.
Exactly.
and again, I don't know. Why they're even rare, but it seems like in a no-brainer for a venue to me is you're going to have people coming who will spend money who just to play their own songs, and then they'll bring people and all that sort of thing, and you get to contribute to the arts and all these things through it. But okay, so I've got to unpack this thought. This is just part of talking to me, unfortunately. It is, Georges Bataille, French intellectual. Do you know who Georges Bataille is?
Oh, I love Star Trek.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know enough about Georges Bataille to give like a bio or anything like that. But he's a very famous French intellectual, and he had like a suicide pact, I believe. People can look this up. Very interesting guy. He wrote about the intersection of death and eroticism. Because the two are connected in some way, right? Like in French, orgasm is referred to as le petit mort, the little death.
Yeah.
Because right after you have this lack of desire that's sort of like a death. Okay, and so the two, Eros and Thanatos, are connected in some way, shape, or form. Freud talked about the death drive as well in his later work. But anyway, George Bataille, there's this quote by him. He says, "Sacrifice is the creation of sacred things." And I've built a lot of my life around it, but I did it in terms of the modern sense of sacrifice. When we think of sacrifice nowadays, I feel like maybe it's just me, but a lot of people feel like, oh, what I sacrifice is just what I give up. Drop my ties in the plate, that's a sacrifice. Or I'm sacrificing my time at this job for money, etc. But the ancient sense, the truly religious sense of sacrifice, which I think George Bataille, even as an atheist, as a well-studied person, knew, is that sacrifice is about ritual and intention. So even going back to the Old Testament, like the sacrifice wasn't about what they were giving up. They were actually giving up their last 10%. It was the excess of the livestock that went to the Levitical class or whatever, the priestly class. And so the point was how the animal had to be prepared. All that kosher stuff, right? And I don't know a lot about that either. But all of that, the ritual, the intention of the sacrifice was what made it sacred. So when I'm talking about open mics as sacred, it is also because what is the intention? Are we there to listen to one another, to enable one another, to share ideas, to create this space where people can truly communicate about their experience, which would make it sacred? Or are we just sort of hanging out?
Yeah. I feel like, it's more of like, I guess what I like about it more is it's always artist focused, if that makes sense. Like any other show that people pay to go for, they kind of have some sort of expectation of what they want to hear.
Right.
And the artist will, whether they like the song or not, they kind of know in their head they're going to have to play that song.
Right.
And it better be a song that they like to play. But with open mic, the audience doesn't have a choice. It is all artistic intention, coming at them. And I guess that's what made me kind of fall in love with that. And or if small venue like gigs are probably another part of that. Like when I was working at Ben and Jerry's, it was right next to the Summit Coffee that was doing open mics. I know I'm going to go back to that a lot if we're talking origin story. And there was this band whose name I'm totally blanking on. I know for a fact that the audience didn't come expecting a song like theirs that they were playing. They were playing a song about the Jerry Springer Show.
Okay.
And I don't know, something about that always stuck in my mind to where nobody is going to proudly talk about that daytime TV show there, but they wanted to do a very ironic, sarcastic take about being on the Jerry Springer Show through song. And at the end of the song, they're chanting Jerry, Jerry. And I'm taking out the trash for Ben and Jerry's. I took out the trash here in the song, and I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to sit down and listen to this. And once they're done, I'm going to go back to work.
and again, it's proximity.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So what happens at an open mic, it only happens there. Yeah. And sometimes for good reason. It's when people take chances. Seasoned performers take chances.
Yes.
People who've never performed before take chances just by getting up there in front of a room of people. And if you're there, you're there. And if you're not, you're not. And so that's the magic of being a person is we're always proximal to someone. So I don't know if I can, again, talking with me is always so much baggage because I go into all these things that people may not traditionally know. But, my field of study primarily is phenomenology, which is a a discipline formed by Edmund Husserl in the beginning of the 20th century, where we try to ground knowledge, the only place it can actually begin, in subjectivity. So without grounding knowledge in subjectivity, there's this crisis of the Western sciences, as Husserl put it. Because if we make ourselves objects of empirical study, then what does the empirical study tell us? It tells us that we are finite brains with all of these biases built in. You have recency bias, confirmation bias. Okay, so now all of the people who are accumulating all of the knowledge for human beings are fallible in this sense, in that they have Dunning-Kruger, they have recency bias, they have negativity bias. So the whole edifice of human understanding, human meaning, collapses upon itself once we study ourselves empirically. So to avoid that, phenomenology seeks to ground everything in the subjective experience, because it always has to come back. Somewhere the knowledge is known by a mind like mine.
And we're back.
All right, yeah. So I was probably rather fortunately cut off as I was describing the crises of the Western sciences that Edmund Husserl attempted to solve with the discipline of phenomenology. But anyway, the phenomenological perspective, what it does is it enables us to accept the givenness of experience. Everything we know in the same way as Nietzsche. There's this passage in Nietzsche in the Gay Science. He's talking about the joyful wisdom, might be a better translation, the Gay Science. So he says, he's talking about knowledge. He says, well, how does a regular person talk about knowledge? Not a philosopher, not a scientist. They say, oh, I know that guy. What does it mean to know someone? It just means that you're familiar with them.
Yeah, they're in proximity.
So essentially all of our knowledge is about familiarity.
Yeah.
And if we don't accept that givenness, the givenness of the truth of experience, then ultimately all knowledge is bankrupt and useless. It's just cards stacked on each other. So House of Cards, and not the Netflix series that many people were disappointed.
So disappointed.
But yeah. Anyway, so but everything about that is why I do things the way I do. Is that the meaning of our lives is given, and it's given through familiarity, and so like someone just wandering into an open mic and you getting familiar with them, getting to know them, that is the basis of all human knowledge. Something like that.
Yeah.
A little lofty of an explanation.
Yes.
So anyway, how did you wander into our open mic, and how's your experience been?
Yeah, so I guess through my experience of living in Charlotte, I think I was doing the open mic over at the Evening Muse, which I still go from time to time there. However, a lot of the time, we end picking like popsicle sticks for like the random order just to try to keep things fair there. I'll usually be like first or second in line, and then usually get like the last position a lot. And so a lot of that was like very time consuming. And so I was trying to find something else there. I found another place. However, it was in Mooresville, of all places, called On Tap. There, the guy running that loved his style, kind of similar to the Briarcliff way, just kind of doing it by feel for that, trying to build community for that. And but then that dissolved and just went away through the craziest way. Like the owner's friend came up and was asking for like the list. And the guy who was running it, very social guy, hanging out with everybody. You know, we all kind of became a clique there. And then here comes this guy who is the owner's like friend, and couldn't find the guy running it to save his life. He's like, "Where's the list? I want to be like next," and kept waiting. And then we had to explain to him, "Oh, there's no list. We kind of do it by feel. How we're doing it. Get familiar with the area." And he was upset by that. He didn't play because he didn't really say anything.
Right.
And so he told the owner about that, got very angry at the guy running it, and then it just, drama ensued, and then it just went away. And it was sad shame, It was a great outlet there, built a good community, and so I was trying to find something else, so it was, I think, on Facebook or something like that, and then I saw some advertisement talking about Tommy's Pub, went there, and then, met you guys, and then the rest was history. I've loved it ever since.
Well, it's interesting what you said, because I've had that thought a lot. The way, there's a list,
there is a list
of sorts. Yeah. You put your name on the list.
Yep, I do it.
And I do avoid letting it just be entirely by feel. But the reason, because if you come to play, I want you to play.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to make sure you play. But the fair is an interesting word, because whenever we say fair, it's fair to whom?
Exactly.
Right? And so is it fair?
There's no objective fair.
There is no, right? Again, phenomenology. Mm-hmm. Everything occurs to me from some perspective.
Yeah.
There's no God's eye view of all of this. If there is a God's eye view of this, it's not mine.
Yeah.
Okay? And so all we can ever do as people is make our decisions from the perspective we have. And so, that idea of fairness, of like, oh, I signed up, so I should get to play, is a very like legalistic idea of fair. Now, but the reality of fair is what's fair to the venue that's trying to pay their bills by selling drinks, food, whatever at these things. What's fair to the person who's running the sound, setting up the equipment, right? Like, and so the fairness question is always just sort of weaponized from this like legalistic perspective. Because, one of the critiques of American culture is it's very litigious, right? Like, I can be like Lucky from King of the Hill and slip on pee-pee and get a $40,000 settlement.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. And that's how we're primed. But who is that fair to?
Yeah.
And so, like, this idea of fairness, to me, it has to be fair to the community that is coming around this open mic and trying to create each person, and hopefully collectively, people are trying to create a space for original artistry.
Yeah.
And so this idea of fairness is what's fair is what leads to us all having a place, a sacred place to make music.
Yeah.
And so those things always happen, and that's one of the things I tried to anticipate with the format that I did. So, so if you are listening, if you come to because you are interested in Briarcliff and how it operates or how our open mics operate, well, I assume that if you're going to an open mic, you have some interest in being in show business because you're wanting to put on a show, and you're wanting to put on a show at a business.
Yeah.
So I've been in entertainment in various forms my entire adult life. Mm-hmm. And every show I've ever been on has had a show runner. So if you want to be on a show, you have to learn to deal with a show runner. So the way that I try to make things work is I have a certain amount of people on a list. I find out, even if you're brand new, what kind of thing you want to do. And I know the sorts of things my regular people want to do and the sorts of things I have in mind that I would like to see and the things that the crowd is enjoying.
Yeah.
And I try to create an ebb and flow that keeps people interested throughout the duration of said open mic so that everybody from the venue to the host to each artist has a good time. There's always trade-offs There's no solutions, only trade-offs.
Yeah.
And so, we just go that way. But if you want to be on a show, you should be used to the idea that there's a certain time for your set, that things can happen. Look, whether I was on set at HBO or making a film at Columbia University, or I was on the road in Pittsburgh or New York or Baltimore or wherever wrestling, there was a showrunner. There were things that came up last minute, problems that had to be...
There always is.
Yeah. Right. And problems have to be solved. And if you want to be a part of any show...
Yeah.
You have to be able to roll with it. And that's part of what you should learn at the very first level.
How to adapt.
Right. When you went to kindergarten, you had to learn to share. You had to learn that nap time wasn't in the middle of class. You had to learn all the things that you have to learn to be a part of the educational system in America or society generally. Same way. The open mic should be a step that trains you for the rest of your music career if you want one.
Yeah.
But even if you don't want one, even if you just want to play your little song and go home, that's great too. But you have to respect the format.
Yeah.
And so...
I feel like you're creating a music culture, even though it is a music business, but has the feel of music culture. If that kind of makes sense.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because...
Just learn to adapt in what's going on, not to, put your place in the ground and then just fight everyone against that. Like, no, this is my spot on the list or something like that. You're
right. Yeah, it's not gonna.
Yeah.
Not gonna fly. And one of the reasons it's not gonna fly is because I'm invested. Like I don't. The microphones are mine. Yeah. It's an open mic, but it's my microphone.
Yeah.
So I think I should get to decide when you get to sing into it.
Exactly.
So fair to who, right?
Exactly.
Again, and you can avoid a lot of drama that way, I think. And maybe not. Maybe I'm crazy, but I think that people enjoy what we do. Cat. But anyway,
just like how we adapt to the cat.
So I guess what I would like to hear is what what's your perspective of, like, say your nights at Tommy's or at Legion, or or even the shows, because we've booked you on shows.
Yeah.
Shake
Shack. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you, and for Shake Shack first?
Yeah.
And so Shake Shack, and then Free Range, and have you played a show at Legion yet? You haven't played a show at Legion yet.
I've done open mic at Legion, but not a show.
Okay, yeah, but it'll happen. I know the guy that books. But yeah, so you've kind of gotten the whole experience. You came in to the open mic. You've done a Briarcliff session video. You are now recording your single with us, and so you've like I say, you've played our shows, so you've gotten the whole experience as far as it exists, as far as it's started from where it was in my brain or whatever a year ago. So actually, I guess I didn't even really think about it before we started this, but you're sort of the archetype for what we're doing. So what's your experience from when you walked in?
Like what was like my thought process as it was happening, or like?
I guess just tell people the story.
Yeah. I came into Tommy's one day for the open mic, because I heard good things. I loved the area there. I guess my first thoughts about it was, wow, this is probably my dad's favorite bar that he's never been to. Like, we're talking a bar that has both Shinerbach and Labatt's, like in an Irish pub setting, like, and Guinness, of course. There, and then also for me, they're like, oh, they had what's the Highland beer that they release every winter?
I don't know.
Cold Mountain. That's what it was. Yeah. the most impossible beer to get. And they're like, yeah, we got thousands of it. You want some? I'm like, yeah. But so after some liquid courage in there, I go up on the stage to play some songs of mine. Usually the ones that I guess typically the ones that had the best reaction at I guess back in my college days when I did the open mic at the Kava bar there. Yeah, you kind of came up to me just saying that you liked my stuff there, and if you ever want to do more, which I never really put that much thought into it, because you hear all the time like, hey, how much money do you want to like drop on that? And then you were just like, no, how about we just record it? One day, you just come to this address and we'll do it. I'm like, sure. And that was kind of like the first step of me thinking about taking music a little bit more seriously there, because the whole time, like since then, was I just want to make my art just for art's sake, if that makes sense.
Right.
Never thought about like presenting to the world. Like I have a SoundCloud there, but it's not really that promoted. And in terms of like recording, a lot of it is simply just my iPhone on the table, and depending on the time period, it was my parents' basement, Oh, yeah. Like it doesn't get more raw than that. And then discovering like the basics of Reaper on there and recording from that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, the idea is, I mean, for me, people they need a little encouragement, like to think, because there's this sort of nihilism of today of like, oh, I'm just doing this little thing. It'll never be anything. And whereas, and I guess people in the past, they were able to have the hubris of like, oh, this will be so important because their world was smaller, Yeah. Like one of the issues with social media is that no matter, used to you had the privilege of being the best athlete in your hometown or the prettiest girl.
Yeah.
Or any of this. But now there's always someone prettier, and the algorithm's going to make sure that they show you her. Yeah. And so I think this has this sort of deflationary impact on people's consciousness, and that's not the only factor, but it's one of them.
Plays a factor.
Yeah, and so like we don't believe that anything that we do has this lasting impact, but all of that is so silly. Why does what you do have to have an impact on the entire world for it to matter? Why do you have to be world famous, a career musician, for your perspective to matter?
Yeah, I guess I feel like nowadays with the world that we live in, we know what's going around the world, but not so much what happens in our backyard, if that makes sense.
Definitely not, because, I mean, it does make sense, sorry. But, I mean, definitely we don't know what's going on in our backyard. And local news is pretty much gone.
Oh, yeah. Every time I watch it, I'm just laughing at it, and it's just some kind of weird... They know their audience is much older and just trying to create some weird fear-based type stuff.
Right, because they can target people by their avatars, their social media sort of identities and all that data. And so if they're not targeting you through that, they're targeting you through the fact that you're the remainder who's using the legacy media. So then that, like you said, it's mostly the geriatric crowd that's watching the cable news.
Exactly.
So all the cable news is geared toward them.
Yeah.
And not a local them, but a global them, because again, that's the only way that their model works.
Yeah.
Which part of Briarcliff too is, I have to think about it like, it's almost like, I don't know. There's no real thing that I'm doing here. I'm just doing, and we are doing it. I shouldn't say but we're partly guerrilla journalists as much as we are, producers and event hosts and all this, because I noticed early on that when I was doing my own music, that there was no journalism to speak of. If you were a music journalist, it seems to me that what you should be documenting are the bands on the Sunday night, the band on the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the ones who are playing the shows who don't have a following yet.
Exactly.
And you should have enough of an understanding of music to know when someone has that je ne sais quoi, and that they have, and you should be like, I want to be the first person.
Exactly. Earn your hipster badge.
Right. Exactly.
Like everybody wants to like cover the bands that have already made it or whatever, you know? Like,
And a lot of that is the model, right?
Yeah.
Like, because they need the click, they need the clickbait. So
it'll drive traffic, you know, but
you're leaving all of the fruit to die on the vine, essentially, by doing that. So a lot of what I'm trying to do is to be there. I'm there every open mic. Tommy's, I've missed 2 open mics all year. One was because there was a band that was in from out of town that was already booked, and the other was because I was filming a movie, and I had Crystal Baller and Zach Moss cover it, and there was still an open mic that was perfectly awesome, you know. But the idea is that I need to see what's really here, not what I wish was here, not the people who are bringing in people in droves, the people who've already made it. So if we're going to find the next thing and we're going to make it the next thing, we have to be there when it rolls in. And that requires, again, sacrifice. So anyway, I guess let's get back to this story though. So I don't know what all. I mean, you've seen some crazy things happen at Tommy's for sure. As far as the different musicians being put together and things like that.
Yeah.
What do you make of all that?
What do I make of the acts that I see?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. If anything, I feel like we're all I don't know. I guess I've never seen an open mic create so much community with each other where other musicians are playing, you know, with each other. Some are doing it on a whim because they can do that, which I kind of love. All the other open mics, it's very, I don't know, sectional. It's like, here is part A, here's part B, C, D, E. But other times, I don't even know who's next just because of the alternating members coming through and just jamming together. It's great. While having the singer-songwriters who are just here to play their songs is also there too. So I guess, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a juggling act because I don't feel like one wrong move will ruin anything, you know? It's just a vibe.
Right.
If that makes sense.
I try to make it almost like a
Yeah, it doesn't feel like here's the next one and the next one and the next one. And you're like, no, it's just playing around, you know?
Yeah. Well, because we have to get away from concept.
Exactly.
Concept will only lead us back to where we've already been. Mm-hmm. So all the notes that we have are notes on what has already been done. So if we're going to find the new thing, we have to go just with intention. Mm-hmm. And so the intention should be to create great music. And you know, no one knows where that's going to come from.
Yeah.
If anyone could know, like the same label would have stayed on top for the entirety of modern music history, but instead, you know, hip hop can be created and overtake everything in a short period of time, or Napster can emerge and destroy the label's business model. Yeah. Like we're not in a fixed time. There's no way of knowing what's going to emerge next. It could be like a cat.
Hey there, cat.
So,
what do you think?
Normally, this is the most meowing cat, but we have yet to get
camera shy.
We've yet to get one meow into a microphone.
Right.
But this is our friend Cat, discovered by my friend Caleb Conley,
aka Goose.
Yeah, it was Goose originally. Now I'm at least tentatively.
What were the other names that were passed around?
Sterling.
Sterling. I don't know.
That's the formal name.
Yeah. Then we went with Rocky. We thought about Rocky.
Oh, okay. Because it's flying around like that squirrel.
Right. Or Rocky Balboa.
Oh, that works too.
Yeah. Either one, but I don't know. I like Cat because we can still put the original surname, and so it's Cat Goose.
There we go.
And but I don't know. We've only been in possession of this cat for about 3 days.
I know that's off camera, but you just attacked Shug. Are you feeling okay?
Ow.
So let's talk about this single, Home. Yeah. And what I mean, so you came down, to track this thing, and you met our producer Mike, who is excellent. He went to Atlanta Institute of Music. Mike and I have been making music together since college, and originally, Mike was he moved to the Charlotte area as a sort of cover band musician and also music teacher right out of AIM, and I guess over time, at the time he lived with me because we had a mutual friend who was the bassist in my band, and he ended up moving in, and over time he would do like guest spots on the records we were recording, and started playing live with us some, and sort of fell in love with the idea of being an original musician and not just trying to be a career musician. And so we've worked together forever, and he always has a refined sensibility about whatever it is he's attacking. But anyway, how has your experience been with that, with tracking Home?
Tracking Home? Definitely felt probably the most pressure out of any of my recording. Only because, like all my other recording is just myself, like flaws and all, like that's if you hear any of my other songs on SoundCloud, you just hear someone trying his best. So it felt a little bit more professional, I guess, coming into this studio for that. To where I'm like, okay, let's make sure I got like the timing down pat like a metronome, make sure vocals are on point and everything. But coming in here, yeah, you guys made it very relaxing, for that. To put out some great performances. Hello. For that, and to where even then I'm like, I have a whole different vocal delivery on that recording. That's vastly different than the every other time I've ever played the song, which I felt like vastly improved everything. Just like how Cat is improving this podcast. I love him.
Well, there's a vulnerability to the intro to the tune that I think was what it called for.
Yeah.
If we can be ever so cryptic, because no one has heard the song.
No one's heard it yet.
So
stay tuned.
It's a song about loss, and what I like about the arrangement is that it has like this sort of major key vamp. I think what I was saying before camera batteries died and whatnot was that what I like about it is it's melancholy, but it has this major key tonality, and to me it's like you're like, okay, we've got to bring back hope, but it sounds to me as if there's this strained attempt to make everything just as it was, but we know that it can never be just as it was. So maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like at the time, like for writing it, it was like I was like 18, I think, when I wrote that song.
Oh wow!
Yeah, And I guess it was just me trying to, cope with, the loss that I had, like my senior year of high school, when I lost my grandpa there, because I've never dealt with death before. The closest thing to that was my dog doing so. It literally ran away, like, but that's a whole other story about that. But when my grandpa died, like, and then like seeing my dad, like tear up, talking about that, breaking the news to me there, really struck me. It was like a major moment of life here. And with that, I just didn't know how to deal with it. We went over to the UP over in Michigan, there over in Manistee, for the funeral. I believe we were staying in a hotel up there, and I don't know, we just kind of took in, the Upper Peninsula. Anytime I ever visited before was just only to visit my grandpa, and of course, being a kid, there's not many places I can go to, but at the time, there was my dad was at a dive bar, over in Manistee, one day, and they were asking him like, "Oh, what are you in Manistee for? It's not exactly a tourist spot." And he's like, "Well, I'm actually here because of my dad. He just passed." And they're like, "Oh, what's your name?" And he's like, "Oh, David Heinz." And you're like, "Wait, are you related to Jerry? Big Jer?" The whole bar started buying my dad drinks for the whole night. My mom was getting pissed with that, and so she comes over to the bar to like confront him. They start buying her drinks, and she's trapped in the whole thing there. And it was in that moment where my dad had this realization why my grandpa never truly moved to North Carolina like everybody else has. Like my grandpa would come down for like the major holidays there, hated him traveling like that, but did so anyways. He's like, "Well, why are you living up here?" And there it's just where, I don't know, he was like, it was his home, to say, and so with that, going up there, kind of ironically, him like being gone made me have this kind of like understanding of how he was living up there, if that made sense, because I never, as a teenager, not really thinking like what he was doing like outside of holidays. I guess my thoughts of him were, coming down when holidays were coming up,
right?
Like I'm going to see my grandpa, and so, but then like there was like this understanding of just like, like where did my family kind of come from there, and like how realize like a lot of things just make sense just being up in Michigan there, especially to UP. They're like just small little quirks, I guess. Like I was the only kid I knew in high school just saying "ope." If I like bumped into someone like, "Oh, I didn't see you there," no one else said that, and it just came natural, like without even thinking, and just not even realizing that's just a very common Midwestern thing to do. There, people were not sharing Midwestern memes back in the day or anything like that, so I had no one was talking about that on the internet at the time. There, and so it was like much later. I just came to see like, oh, a lot of things make sense now that I'm there. Like, because even then, we were walking through. Me and my cousins, we were bored at like the hotel or whatever. So we were calling up our parents, like, "What are you doing?" We're like, "We're at a bar. You can join us if you want, if you can make it." So we're hiking through like, God, I don't know how many blocks, but in the freezing cold snow, just snow up to our knees. Being from North Carolina, never used to that shit. We get there, and thankfully, the bartender, kind of knowing why we're here, was cool enough just to turn a blind eye and give my dad 2 shots, and then a Coke for me, and then my dad was like, "Hey, here's a shot of rum. Put it in your Coke." And I had a few drinks at the bar well before I was like 21 there, but just kind of taking in the atmosphere, and it was Nice. It was like a weird, strange beauty about it, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So you really didn't, in a sense, you couldn't understand your granddad without going to his home.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And so, phenomenologically, this is beautiful because again, we're all about proximity and about our community. Husserl's student, or it's a complicated history I won't get into, but Martin Heidegger, who I don't like for a variety of reasons, but talks about human being as it's always being there, or Dasein. And so since what we are is consciousness, we're always conscious of something, some place.
Yeah.
And so you can't imagine a human being, a being there, a Dasein, without knowing their culture.
Yeah.
There's no sort of universal human nature. There's the existence that you're sort of thrown into in Heideggerian language, and then you become conscious of it, and then that determines who you are. So there's no Plato without Athens. There's no Nirvana without Seattle, no Biggie without Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And so the reason we're creating what we're creating is because once we have a community around Briarcliff or Tommy's or Legion or any of the venues that we work at, without that community, there's no place for people to call home, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it's wonderful. I didn't really have the full context of the song.
Yeah, when I sing in the second verse, saying like my father spent his days as a working man, missed the things he's never known. That was, I could have wrote it another way, but it was more about him and his relationship with my grandpa. And when I say it took a death for him to suddenly realize all the beauty he has shown, it took my grandfather's death for my dad to realize all the beauty my grandfather is shown.
Right.
Like everything that he's built in that kind of way, if that makes sense.
How well he was appreciated in his own place, in his own local watering hole.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean like anyone's like a bad person or anything. My dad was basically doing what his duty was, just to be a dad, work, and take care of the family that he's created, for that. And my grandpa had that realization there, and where he's like, yeah, you're doing your own thing. This is nothing personal here. I just know that I have my community that is right here. It would be strictly family, only when they kind of want me-ish, but I will absolutely, but it's still like all love, like going down for holidays and everything like that. Doing Sunday phone calls like right after the Panthers game or something like that. My grandpa was a huge Lions fan, so yeah, every Sunday he would talk about the Lions in the most positive light, which is, if anyone who has ever followed the Detroit Lions, is not an easy thing to do.
Sure, it's not. It's not that easy to.
Especially 2008.
I'm fortunate that I've gotten too busy to worry about being a Panthers fan anymore, because
it's rough nowadays.
Right, it's been for a long time. When I came into that, this short detour here. When I came into the Panthers, I wasn't really into football. It was my senior year of high school, and I just happened to tune in. I used to do this thing where when I was in middle school, high school, I've always been a strange person, but so how I got into wrestling even was like, I was like, man, all the kids are talking about wrestling. It was like the Attitude Era boom. So I was like, man, I better tune into wrestling, figure out what everybody's up to, and then maybe I can talk about it with them. And I kind of did the same thing with football. So I started watching the Panthers game, and it was the game literally where Jake Delhomme came off the bench, and then they ended up going to the Super Bowl that season.
Yep.
And so I fell in love with it because it was like this, fairy tale. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that actually.
But also I see a similarity between you, Drew, and Chase, in that like Chase, you kind of learned more about your grandfather through his passing. Kind of talk about that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because now, it's almost like for me that I sympathize with him more. My granddad was he didn't know who his father was. Was poor, and I think he dropped out of school in 8th grade, and he went on to create this sort of rental property empire, in a sense. But how he did that was by working, long hours as a supervisor in a mill, and then he'd put back money, and then he went on to be like a truck driver, and he'd do like these cross-country runs with his wife, Dottie. And so they would put back their money into buying like mobile homes. And they'd buy these mobile homes for like $5,000, and they'd remodel them again and again and again, and just keep renting them. And he told me it would take like 5 years to pay off one from the rent that he could get. Yeah. And eventually, at the time of his passing, he had like 120 rental properties, and he did that all without a formal education. But now looking at how he had to manage that as I'm trying to manage things, and also learning from the mistakes that he made, I understand a whole lot more about who he was, and even who he should have been and who I should be from the whole thing. It was really weird, surreal thing. But, again, we're all somewhere. Yeah. And I think the problem is with artists, from a phenomenological perspective, right? So human being is always, this unlocks everything about Briarcliff. Briarcliff is a company aimed at phenomenological understanding. It's through a phenomenological understanding of all this that I'm doing anything. So we all are somewhere. And the issue with artists is we don't want to disclose where we are. Everybody's aiming at that universal fairness, going back to the coffee shop open mic. They're like, oh, what is fair? Fair is everybody gets the same amount of time. Yeah. Who's that fair to? If the guy comes up and he's killing and everybody wants to hear him play one more song, yeah, wouldn't it be more fair if everybody got to hear him play one more song? Especially if he wants to play one more song too. Exactly. So the fairness changes all the time because human being is not some universal. Yeah. Human being is local and comes from a perspective. And so when we aim at, I'm going to be the next Neutral Milk Hotel, then we betray who we actually are, and there's always a tell. The key to being an artist is to be exactly who you are, where you are, and to communicate that. Yeah. In the Upanishads, okay, there's the Atman and Brahman, and the Atman is the one that is always disguised as multiple, and that's how we are. Yeah, is I'm a conscious experience, and you see me through the multiplicity of activities that I do in the world, but you never see my intention or my inner life. There's absolutely nothing I can do to control what you think of me, and there's nothing you can do to control what I think of you. That much is invisible and beyond us all. Yeah. But everything ends up happening in this multiplicity where everyone could see it. That's where the empirical sciences are. That's where everything is. But that's never getting at the truth. So what is the truth? Well, when I listen to Jay-Z talk about having crack in his palm, watching out for the long arms of the law, I can relate to him. Why can I relate to him even though I've never sold crack?
That we know of.
I can relate to him because he's telling me the truth about his experience.
Well, literally, it just happened. So if it wasn't for this conversation, I wouldn't know that the three of us, all share a very sacred experience through about our grandfathers. Because I also lost my grandpa in high school.
Oh.
And so it's just, but if we didn't have this conversation, if we didn't take the time to get to know each other, we wouldn't wouldn't have this. So
Taylor Swift's 37th breakup, through that, we all understand our own breakups insofar as we put ourselves in a particular. But we can't put ourselves in a universal. You can't aim at being the universal good man. You can aim at being the best version of you. And so, like, as songwriters, as, event hosts, producers, whatever, anything you are, the cashier at the 7-Eleven, your job as a person is just to find the goodness in the moment, in the community. How can you see the one that never truly manifests itself in the multiple? How can I see the true spirit of someone and respect that? The light in me honors the light in you, yoga, whatever, right? Like, how can I see that and not all the things that obscure it?
Yeah.
So, anyway, I guess that's what it's all about. Maybe we should talk about trumpets real quick. I don't know. We got Michael Murphy to come in and do a trumpet arrangement at the end.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'm really excited for everyone to hear it. Shug and I and Michael, came up with this arrangement here, and I think it sends the song home in a good fashion. And, it's also really cool that your first single has trumpets on it,
right?
But the trumpet idea, I don't think it was all mine, right? Like you had an idea for you kind of had a sense of that it should have that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, playing it for so long, I just knew I had a instrumental break in there where I'm just playing the main chords, and I just knew, some kind of solo would work great, and of course, listening to a lot of Neutral Milk Hotel there, I just knew that trumpets would definitely just fit in for that, And maybe not like the trumpet that was playing, it was much better than anything that I would have in my head, for that, and I love that, appreciate that,
That's something that I learned the hard way, was that the ideas that I have for my own songs, the ideas that I had for what the bass should do or what the drums should do would almost always be inferior to the ideas that a bassist or a drummer would have if I just let them do
their thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And, again, that's the idea of the way we do our open mics, especially the open mic at Tommy's, because it's let me just see what happens when these two people who've never met one another play together.
Exactly.
And there's an infinite realm there's so many infinite possibilities of that beyond just, this song should have a solo here, it should do this or that. And then where's the spontaneity in that? Where's the beauty in that?
Yeah.
So, all of it to me is let's get away from concepts as far as we can. We always have to sort of, I think the reason we need concepts is I need to be able to tell, take it back to primordial humanity. I need to be able to tell you, hey, your kids shouldn't play over there because there's snakes in that pond, right? Or you can get food over there. You can get clean water over here. That's the use of our knowledge, is to tell one another how to avoid danger, how to find food, how to connect with one another, how to tell people what happened to us, right? So maybe it won't happen to them, or so maybe it can happen to them. right?
Yeah.
That's the point of the concept. But when we fool ourselves into thinking that the map is the territory, that's where all the problems come. That's where we get the Great Depression. Everyone's speculating on what should happen. Oh, it's going up and up and up. It's going to keep going up and up and up. Mm-hmm. Right? That's where we get the punchline for our jokes.
Yeah.
It's going to go this way and this way and this way, and then surprise.
It doesn't.
Right. So it will happen again and again if we make it about concept. Oh, I'm so on and so forth, whatever. That will never hold true. But the experience itself will ultimately be where the truth is given. Mm-hmm. So we create the experience, and all you got to do to create the experience is be there. Mm-hmm. Human being is always being somewhere. So why do we want to make it about these universal concepts that we're trying to create?
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's sort of how I think about it all, in a nutshell. But anyway, totally. Well, Drew, I'm excited about putting out this thing. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to go about that just yet, but we'll let people know when we do, and you'll probably be playing some sort of Briarcliff show to celebrate it, and everybody can come enjoy that there.
Can't wait.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Briarcliff out.
Bruce Cliz!